Kamala Harris accepted the Democratic nomination for president at the DNC finale in Chicago. And in her speech, she launched a full-throat attack on her arch-rival and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, warning that his presidency comes with dire consequences. She accused him of fanning riots, of being a felon, and even sending an armed mob to the Capitol. Now, Harris has emphasized that Trump's presidency has been driven by self-interest rather than the nation's well-being. She's also, in her speech, spoken of what her priorities will be, vowing to prioritize national security, revive the border security bill, and take a firm stance on international issues, including Russia's aggression and the Israel-Hamas conflict. As Harris delivered his speech, Trump quickly responded on his platform, Read Truth, mocking her for constantly complaining, saying that she complains without taking any action. He suggested that instead of giving speeches and criticizing, Kamala Harris should focus on making these changes as vice president.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. If we give him power again, consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
So those are some of the highlights of what Kamala Harris had to say at the DNC finale. But also importantly, she celebrated her Indian roots and honored her late mother, Kamala Harris, praised her outgoing boss, President Joe Biden, as she outlined her vision for the nation. Here are more excerpts.
My mother, our mother, Kamala Harris, had one of her own, and I miss her every day, and especially right now. And I know she's looking down smiling. I know that. So my mother was 19 when she crossed the world alone, traveling from India to California with an unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer. When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me. Growing up, we moved a lot. I will always remember that big Mayflower truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin,